Hey guys. You've heard the news by now. I'm assuming that we are on NTI these first 2 days of this week. Um, I would hope because you're watching this, so you should, still be at home. Um, my original plan was for Miss Slater, our college coach, to come in and talk to you guys and answer some of the questions that you guys have asked from Friday, but because we're not in person, not a possibility. So I'm going to do my best to answer the questions. I have emailed her and asked her some questions to make sure I don't tell you anything wrong. And you can always follow up with her or Miss Lemaster if needed um, to get some extra questions answered. Okay, and I'll make sure that you have their contact information, and I'll do like a miniature. What's I'm looking for? I'll do like a miniature information sheet for you after we finish this video. So um, I had 7 responses total to the questions on Friday, which I expected because they're not due till Wednesday, and that's fine. And if there's other questions that come up between now and the next class, then I may do another video like this and post it so that way you guys have it. You don't have any assignment for me today other than to go complete your FAFSA. And so that's what we're going to start because that was one of the questions. How do I complete the FAFSA, or do I have to complete the FAFSA? So the quick question or quick answer to that is yes, you should complete the FAFSA, even if you don't think you're going to apply for financial aid, even if you think there's no chance in the world that you're going to get anything at all. There's 2 reasons for that. One, you don't ever know. Actually, there's 3 reasons. The first reason is you don't know. You may think you're not going to qualify for it whatsoever. You may be right. But you also may get some money from your college and not realize that that's an option even for you until you fill out your FAFSA. Okay. Second reason, um, sometimes scholarships will not allow you to even apply if you have not submitted your FAFSA, and you will not be eligible for them even if you have applied, if you don't have your FAFSA, because they have to have a way to process the money they're giving you. So you want to make sure that you do have that filled out if you're going to apply for scholarships. But the third thing that's pretty much the most important one of the 3 is that if you don't fill out the FAFSA, there are some of the state universities and public universities that will not process your college application without the FAFSA. And I think there's several in Kentucky that will not even look at your application until you have your FAFSA completed. And so those are 3 really good reasons to make sure you have them done. It doesn't take a ton of time, but you will need whoever is your legal guardian's tax return from 2019. Okay, so make sure you have that information, and FAFSA will walk you through that. Okay, so if you're not sure how to deal with FAFSA, it's really basically, my dogs are going to bark in the background. I'm sorry. It's really basically just following the directions that it gives you on there. Okay, I recommend doing this with the person in charge of you, so parent, grandparent, whoever takes care of you. All right. And whoever is legally responsible for you, that is the person that you need to get with. Um, if you are in a special situation where you're maybe in foster care or another situation, whatever it may be, if you feel like you don't quite know, you can email Miss Slater and she can get you information about how to do that. And like I said, I will post her email for you and you're welcome to contact her. If you haven't joined the senior year Google Classroom, make sure you do that. I did post the code for you guys. It's been a while back, but I'll boost it back up to the top. Or I'll try to find it and just post it for you. Probably be easiest. But it's just like, it's college information. It's college and scholarship and things like that kind of information. And so it can't hurt you to join that. She sends out scholarships and things like that all the time. But she also sends out workshops about FAFSA and all that good stuff. Okay. So let's start with FAFSA, and then we'll talk about some of the other stuff you guys have asked as well. So I'm going to show you how to get there, because that seems like probably the most important thing first. So it's really simple. You go to Google and you type in FAFSA, FAFSA. Free application for federal student aid is what it stands for. So FAFSA. Okay, we usually pronounce it FAFSA, but it's FAFSA, FAFSA. Okay. One of these 2 at the top will take you to the place. If you feel more comfortable, you can go to the home page. So I just clicked on that second link there. Sometimes it'll give you like an ad, but it still should take you there. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. But I always, it's out of habit, click that second one. So when it comes up, it'll essentially ask you if you have never done this before. And so it'll walk you through that process. Okay. So give it just a second to load up here. Okay. So if you have never done this before, right? You've never gone to school before, all that stuff. It does have a bunch of information that you can find about different items. So let's get through them. We'll talk some more of the logistical stuff with that. So if you've never done this before, you're going to have to create an account. Okay. So all right. So it's going to ask you to do is create an FSA ID. Whatever this number is that you pick, write it down somewhere. Don't lose it. Make sure it's a number you're not going to forget. Okay. You can use the last 4 digits of your social security number. You can use a birthday that's really important to you. You can choose a date that you know you remember, a set of numbers you can do. But in order to create this, you have to have your social security number and you have to have your own phone number or email address. Okay. So you click get started. Okay. It's going to walk you through this whole process. All right, you put in the information. You have to make sure you have your social security number. Okay. Here's the problem. I can't really walk you through this because I've already applied for FAFSA. I already have an FSA ID. And so my suggestion to you is that if you need help doing this, you can either request a meet with me, with Miss Welsh, or with Miss Slater. And any of us can walk you through this process and show you what you need to do. But you do have to make sure you know your social security number, or at least have it handy. Okay. So once you have that FSA ID, hang on a second. And it's running slow. Okay. So once you go to log in, look what it asks for you. It asks for your FSA ID, email, or mobile phone. Okay. Kind of remember mine. I don't think it'll automatically fill in or not here. The good thing is that once you do this, it should be pretty much one of those things that you don't really have to worry about remembering. Well, you have to remember it, but like every year, it's the same thing. Okay. So I'm doing this on my phone because I can remember it a little bit easier. So once I log in, eventually, it's going to double check my information. It's going to tell me, it's going to make sure I have all my information in there. So email, preferred communication, address. Please pick an email that you know you're going to check frequently. Okay? If you have an email address that you haven't used in years and you put that in there and you can't get into it, guess what? You can't complete your FAFSA. Okay. So you have to make sure you're using that. And I would recommend using an email that you can check frequently. Put it on your phone because they may choose you for verification. And what that essentially means is they'll just make sure that you have put in the right information. And Miss Slater can also help you through that. But you have to check your email so that way, if you do get something about, hey, I need you to follow up with this or whatever, that you can get that information. Okay. So once you put that in there, it's going to ask you for all your information. You're going to put that in. You'll have to verify your contact information. So verify your phone number. It'll send you a text. And you also verify your email address. And they should send you a code in both the email and the text message. And it'll tell you how to get there. And then once you get on there, it will tell you, it'll give you options. So like I'm preparing for school, I'm in school, I'm in repayment, or I'm a parent. Well, you're preparing for school. So you're going to click on that. And it'll tell you to complete the FAFSA form. So you will click on complete the FAFSA form, and it will take you to this option where it says apply for financial aid. It'll tell you off what you need to gather. Okay. It'll tell you how to apply. It'll walk you through every single step, and then it will do a review for you to make sure. Okay. Um, so it's a pretty straightforward process. It's just you have to have the documents you need. It'll tell you where to find the information that you need to find and all that stuff. You just have to have it in front of you. So you have to have those tax documents. Okay. Like I said, there are some special situations, and if you know that's the case, reach out to Ms. Slater, and she can definitely help you walk through those. I'm not as knowledgeable about those special situations, so I don't want to tell you the wrong thing. But I know that she knows all about that stuff, and she can help you with that at any time. Okay, so that's pretty much how you get to the FAFSA. Okay, another question that was asked about FAFSA was so we already answered should you apply, answered how do you apply. And the last question about FAFSA is there a deadline to submit it? Okay, there's not a deadline to submit FAFSA for like in general. But some schools have a FAFSA deadline, so you have to double check that with if you're going to Moorhead, I don't think they have a FAFSA deadline. But maybe if you're going to a school like out of state, you want to check and make sure they don't have a FAFSA deadline. Usually it's the same deadline near and around when you apply, like your application date, but it could change. So they may not have one. If you are in talks with an admissions counselor, if you've already made it to that process, then you can go ahead and ask them, do we have a FAFSA deadline? Okay. My recommendation is the earlier, the better. Okay. So here's the thing. Grant money, which is money that you get from the university or from the state, and it's money you don't have to pay back. That's the kind of money you want. Grants and scholarships are your friend. Okay. And so grant money runs out. So even if you have a need for financial aid, if you don't apply for the FAFSA early enough, you may miss out on some of that grant money. If you haven't applied for the FAFSA, do it today. That's your assignment. If you haven't, is apply for the FAFSA right now. Just go do it. You can pause this video, come back to it later, go fill out the FAFSA. Get the information that you need from whoever's in charge of you, and sit down with them and get the FAFSA taken care of, because the earlier you can get it in, the better. If you're going to school next year, you will have to complete the FAFSA again. You have to complete the FAFSA every single year you plan on going to school. Remember, the earlier, the better. As of right now, on February 7th, 2021, the FAFSA is released every October 1st. Now, it has changed in the past, but I don't see it changing anytime in the near future, but it could. So be on the lookout for that. But for right now, and until they change it, every October 1st, FAFSA goes live. And if I were you, I'd get on there like October 1st, as soon as you can. Okay. Get it filled out, get it taken care of. It's one less thing you got to keep on your checklist, especially when you're in college and you're stressed out already. Okay. Because you'll be in full swing of your first semester by October 1st. So go ahead and get that FAFSA done and move on. Okay. You will have to use whoever is in charge of you. You will have to use their tax information. Unless you have a special circumstance, until you are, I believe, 23 or 22. And so you want to make sure that you are keeping up with that. Okay. And that they are keeping up with it, so you can have that information. Okay. So the question too, is there a deadline? Not necessarily, but you should have applied for FAFSA. Just apply for it today, right now. Go do it now. Okay. So, let's see. FAFSA question done. FAFSA question done. Tuition. So the question is, is the initial tuition the only thing that I pay for, or is there more to it? Now, here's the thing. Typically, your college will give you a breakdown of how much it costs to go to that university. And so let me give you an example. So give me just a second. And once I get there, I'll share my screen with you and you can kind of see how they break it down. Typically, there are extra fees that are associated with going to college. If you're living on campus, your fees are going to be a little bit higher. But like if you're going to ACTT, your fees are not going to be as high. Or maybe if you're going to Marshall but living at home, or Shawnee and living at home. Um, so what it ultimately comes down to is, you know, what is going to be your situation while you're um, while you're at that school. Okay. So here we go. Okay, so EKU has a thing called net cost calculator. Okay, so let me share this with you so you can see what it looks like. And if you go to Google and you type in net cost calculator EKU, for example, it'll tell you how much EKU is essentially going to cost you for the first time new freshman. Okay, which you guys will be. And so keep in mind it's an estimate, but if you know that you're interested in going to EKU and the estimate that you get is like right on the edge of what you need, you can always reach out to these financial aid people and their contact information is on this webpage. Okay. I know that nobody likes to make a phone call, but sometimes you got to. Okay. But if you really hate making a phone call, excuse me, there's also email addresses you can ask. All right. So when you go in here, you go, let's get started. It's going to ask you some questions because this will tell you what scholarships you are eligible for. Okay, so high school GPA, let's say 3.8. This is an example. Let's say my ACT was 25. You probably didn't take the SAT. Okay, they ask you about your state of residence because it's cheaper to go to school in state than it is to go out of state. Okay, the only exception to that might be Marshall because they will give you the same rate in the metro area, meaning Ashland. So if you live in Ashland, you should have access to that. Okay, I'm not a resident of Madison County. I'm not Hispanic or Latino. I'm white. And they ask you if your parents would be willing to take out a Parent Plus loan. And essentially, that's a private loan that your parents can take out to help fund your education. So if you think they're going to be willing to do that, you can click yes. If you think they're not able to do that, you can click no. Okay, I'm going to put no on there. So it'll tell me that I'm eligible for some scholarships. So look here, $6,000, right? That's a pretty good amount of money to pay for that. Okay, so I'm going to continue it. All right, so it says I may qualify for additional aid. And then when you finish the FAFSA, you will have something called an EFC, an estimated family contribution. It'll be a number that will be on your FAFSA and it will show up when you finish and it'll tell you how much it is. And so let's say that I don't know my EFC, haven't done it yet. Okay. I want to click continue. Gives me the option to do that. All right. I don't know what my EFC is. Okay. So you all are going to be 18, not married, not in theory, primary source of financial support for any children. And then if you maybe you were going to go into EKU, but you're going to also go in the National Guard, you can say yes. But if you're not going to go into the military through that, then you would just select no on that. Okay, so relatively easy questions. It gives you step by step. It walks you through the process. It's just you have to figure out, do I know the answers to these questions essentially? Okay. And so then it'll ask you about your parents. Did they file their form? If they have a tax return from 2019, yes, they do. And so there'll be a total income number, a total assets. Your parents may not have assets, but they also may. It just depends. It'll ask for untaxed income, and it'll also give you some information if you don't know what to look for. Okay. And then the taxes paid total. Are your parents married? Yes or no? How old is your oldest parent in years? Okay. So um, let's say my parents filed that and my parent total income was $45,000. Okay. They have no additional assets. Okay. Their untaxed was 0. And untaxed would be like something that they got like outside of their normal income. I don't know what their total taxes paid were. And let's say my oldest parent is 40. I don't know. Let's say 40. That seems about right. Okay. And it also says if your parents are divorced, the parent you live with has remarried. This is the older of your parent and step parent. So any parent that you have, the oldest of whoever you live with. Okay. But my parents are married, so I don't have to worry about that. All right. I'm gonna click continue. And then I may not have any income whatsoever. We're going to talk about taxes for you guys in just a minute, but let's say I don't have any income here. Okay, this is usually like for people who are a little bit older. But let's say I don't have any income, I have no assets, I didn't pay any taxes last year. Let's say there's four of us. I have a sibling and then my parents, and then I'm going to be the only one enrolled in college this year. I'll be the first, but then there's going to be one later on. Okay. If I'm going to EKU, at least for the first year, because I don't know anybody, I don't know how to get an apartment yet. I'm going to live on campus because it'll be easier. Okay. So I'm going to click continue. All right. Now, when I go down here, it's going to tell me exactly how much it will be, or right about how much it will be. Okay. So if you look here, tuition and fees is what I was talking about. So this would be like your initial amount. Okay. I'm living on campus though. So you'll see an additional 10,000 here. Does that seem like a lot of money? Yeah. Is there a possibility that you'll get way more financial aid than this? Yes. Okay. These two items on this line are estimates. You will have to buy books, but if you get financial aid, you may have the opportunity to get a book voucher, and your books may be cheaper. Okay, so make sure that if you do get financial aid from the FAFSA that you ask about that. And then personal or transport. So let's say like you're going to drive home, I don't know, one weekend a month. If you drive home one weekend a month from EKU to here, it's about a half tank of gas. So you need to plan on filling up your gas tank if you're going to drive home. And so how much is that going to cost you? Are you going to go to the movies with your friends? Are you going to go out to eat? The answer to that is yes, because you're in college and you don't want to go to the cafeteria every single day. So it'll be in there. And the room and board in your tuition and fees should include a meal plan cost. So there's that. So this is what it's telling me is that my price essentially, since I'm going to have total scholarships and estimated other things, my price to go to EKU per year should be about $10,000. Not a ton of money when it comes down to college, but $10,000 is a ton of money. Okay. The good thing is that there are options for you when you fill out the FAFSA, and when EKU sees how much you need, they will actually send you an award letter and tell you how much money that they can give you. This is why whenever you're a freshman in high school, we tell you make sure you get your grades done and make sure you keep up with things, because if you don't, your GPA is going to bite you in the butt when you're a senior trying to apply for college. Okay. And I hate to be like that, but the good news is there are so many scholarships in this area. There are scholarships for you just because you go to Boyd County High School. And so be on the lookout for those. Follow Miss Slater on Twitter. Get on the Google Classroom page that she has and all that good stuff. Okay. Now, I'm going to circle back to taxes in just a second. Getting a loan for a cheap car and then paying back the loan monthly. Okay, loans typically are paid back monthly. Your best bet at your age is to try to go to like a bank, maybe the bank that you use if you have one, and you want to try to find, see if they will give you a loan for a certain amount of money, typically a relatively small amount of money, but if they will give you a certain amount of money, if you have a co-signer. Typically, if you have a parent or somebody who's close to you who would be willing to co-sign a loan for you, then that will help you have enough credit to get a loan. Odds are at your age, you don't have any credit at all. You may not even have any credit history whatsoever. Maybe you have credit history if your parents like had a cell phone open in your name or something like that, and that's great. But odds are you don't. And so your best bet is to try and go to the bank that you use, or the bank that maybe your parents or whoever's in charge of you uses, and ask somebody near you to co-sign a loan. And it's a big thing to ask somebody to do to co-sign a loan for you, because they are also putting their own credit on the line. Because if you can't pay that loan, then it falls on them. So you want to make sure you find somebody who you trust and who can trust you and also be trustworthy. Probably the bank will want to make sure that you have a job, or at least have been hired for a job or have a plan. But if you're planning on like maybe going to college, they will want to know, some things about you and things like that. Yes, loans typically are paid back monthly, and they will tell you typically how much your loan payment will be before you take it out. Okay, so it just depends on a lot of different things, but the bank will answer any questions you have about how much it will be. Please know that if you take out a loan, you probably will not pay it back in a year unless you are paying way more than what they tell you is your minimum payment. That's just how loans work, unfortunately. But if you pay back your loan and you pay it on time, let's say you get a 5-year loan and you pay how much ever it is a month, and you pay it on time every time. You're not late, or if you think you're going to be late, you call them and say, "Hey, I'm going to be like 2 days late. Can you please just not report it?" They won't, especially if you don't do that every single month. And it will boost your credit a ton because people who are looking at your credit will see that you have a credit line. They will look and see that you have paid your thing on time, and that you have paid it consistently, and that counts a lot for your credit score. Okay, and that's a lot of adult mumbo jumbo, I know, but you're about to be in the world, and so those things are difficult to sort of figure out and navigate. And so, even if you get into the world and you have a question, please ask. Okay, you have my email address. All right. Um, let's see. The best jobs for you. Um, my suggestion for that is to start with things that you like to do. If you know that you like to tinker around with different things, maybe you could look into being a mechanic. If you know that you like to build things, if you know that you like to help other people, maybe you need to go into like the nursing profession, or maybe you want to go into the doctoral profession even. Maybe you like animals a lot and you want to go into something with animals. I mean, the thing is, once you get to college, you will realize very quickly that there's a lot of different paths that you can take from high school into a job. Then your best bet is like thinking about, well, what classes did I take in high school that I really liked? Maybe you graduate with certification in welding or carpentry or something. If you did, then go do that. But if it's something where you're really just not sure, think about what you like to do, and maybe even if you have some extra time on your hands, go volunteer at some places. Go volunteer at the hospital, or go volunteer at the animal clinic or the animal shelter, or go see if you know somebody who is a mechanic, or if your family's gone to the same mechanic for your entire life, go talk to that guy and say, "Hey, would you care if I just like shadowed you for the day just to see what it's like to be a mechanic?" Odds are they're going to tell you that's fine. They probably want you to be safe, but I mean, as long as you behave yourself, I don't know that there's many people who would tell you no. Okay, so finding the best jobs for you, figure out what you like, and go from there. Um, the best website as far as finding a job for this area that I have found is Indeed.com. And it will ask you things that you want to look for, and it will tell you it sometimes will tell you how much you will get paid. It will tell you where the job is, and it'll tell you like different information as long as they have it about the job. And so, if you have questions about applying for a job or anything like that, you have a resume now and a cover letter. So, but you can also, if there's some place that you know specifically that you want to work at, you can also email that place, or you can call that place and ask them if they're hiring, see if they'd let you drop off a resume so they have it on file. It can't hurt anything. Okay. Now, last question that I have on here is how to do taxes. Okay. So, odds are you make less than $75,000 a year as an 18-year-old. Okay. So, here's what I typically do. Okay. What you're going to need is you're going to need your W-2. Okay. Um, it'll come in a package, or it'll come in something that looks kind of like this. All right. Let me stop presenting so you can see it. So, this is mine. Comes in a little thing from the Boyd County Board of Education, and it will typically say important tax document enclosed. Okay. When you start going to college, you will also get a document from college. You might get a document from insurance, things like that. So I'm not going to try to get up close to this, but you'll get something called a W-2, and it'll have a W-2. It'll say it somewhere on the form. Mine says it down here in the corner. You can't really see it, and I don't want you to. But it'll say W-2 somewhere on it. It'll tell you the year, so you know what year you're filing taxes for. So you always file the taxes for the previous year. So it's 2021. I just did my taxes, and I'm filing for 2020. Okay. All the information that you need to file taxes is on your W-2 as long as you only worked in the one place. Now, if you have stocks, if you own property, all that stuff changes a little bit, but it's still the same basic stuff because these programs that they have now online will walk you through these things. Okay. So if you go to TurboTax Freedom Edition, sorry, it's one word, my bad. You should not have to pay to get your taxes filed at your age. Okay. You can do it online and it'll do it for you. Okay. See, I go here, I click file for 0. Oh, I probably should share my screen with you. That would be really helpful, wouldn't it? So TurboTax Freedom Edition is where you need to go. They are going to try to get you to pay for your taxes. They are a business. They've got to make money. But every time they try to get you to do it, just tell them no. You don't need it. So I didn't file taxes last year. I didn't work last year. Okay. So I'm going to click continue. And then I'm pretty sure this is where it asks you to set up an account. It should be a secure account because it's going to report to the IRS and things like that. And TurboTax will handle filing it through the IRS. If the IRS doesn't accept your return, either you made a mistake or you entered something in wrong. So, it's one of those things. So, see, it's asking you to create an account. So I'm use my school address just to show you this for. Okay. And then I'm just going to make my user ID. And my name's really Common, so I'm going to put the year on there too and see if that works. You suggest a password. Chrome does this for you, and it'll go ahead and fill it in for you. And typically, it will also save it for you. I'm never going to use this again. I'm just showing you how to do this, so I'm not that concerned about it. So it is now creating an account for me, theoretically. Save my password. Thank you, Google. If you use software like TurboTax or anything like that, there are more options for free taxes. There's TaxAct, Freedom. There's a couple of other ones that you can use that are free, and you don't have to worry about paying anything for them. If you don't like the idea of getting to file your taxes free, I guess you can always pay for it. And TurboTax has an option where you can pay for their services using whatever return that you get or whatever refund you get. Typically, if you don't make just a ridiculous amount of money and you work for an employer who takes taxes out of your check, you will get a tax refund. And it just varies on how much it will be. So it really just comes down to, how much did I work? How much did I make? I think when I was in high school, I would usually get a couple $100s for a tax return. And I mean, that was pretty big money to me when I was 16 and 17. But when you get older, it becomes a little bit more than that, and you get different credits and things like that. So it's going to literally take 10 years to make this account for some reason, and I'm sorry. While it's doing this, the only assignment that you have for me today is to watch this video. 1, almost done. 2, if you have any questions, email me or email Ms. Slater, email Ms. Master, somebody. Get in touch with somebody who can help you. And if you haven't done the FAFSA yet, do the FAFSA, please. Get it done, like yesterday. Okay. You have to have it done. You have to get it taken care of. Is it going to make your head ache just a little tiny bit? Maybe. But in the end, it'll be worth it because you'll have some money. Okay. Okay, here we go. So, see, it's going to walk me through and ask me all these questions. All right. And so it's probably going to stop me because I already have an account with them under a different email address, but we'll see what it does. Oh, 2009. Okay, tell it knows exactly where I am automatically. A little creepy, but it knows exactly where you are automatically. Okay. And it's going to ask you things like this, like, okay, so I don't feel so great about doing my taxes. I'm a little bit nervous about it. It's my first time. I'm afraid I'm going to get in trouble or something, whatever. Okay. They're trying to walk you through the process really easily. Okay. All right. I'm 18 and single, and I didn't do any of these things. Okay. I didn't get a stimulus because I'm a dependent of my parents. So I'm going to click continue. None of these applied to me. Okay, so you see this? As soon as you go into this, it's going to tell you where you need to go. Okay, now let's say none of these apply to me except for I had a job. If you don't have a job, you don't file taxes typically, unless you get some sort of extra income, and that's a whole different story that I would have to help you out with individually. Okay, but if you had a job, you should be filing your taxes. Okay, so W-2, all that stuff. It's telling me all the stuff I need to do. All right. And it's going to ask you to do different things like go ahead and sign, and it's okay if you do, it doesn't matter. You can also say no thanks. I'm just going to say no thanks. Just forget it. I'll just do it later. Obviously, if your parents know how to do these things, then absolutely let them help you, please. But if your parents are not really familiar with how to use some of this software, they always go to an expensive place or something like that, and they can't help you with these things, I'm happy to try to help you best I can. But you do have to make sure that you have your tax information that you need to report. Okay. But I'm also not a tax preparer. So if you get audited, I'm sorry. It's not my fault. So when I get to this point, um, it will ask all these questions. Okay, so I have my W-2. I'm gonna enter in my money. I'm not gonna enter in my W-2, but I'll show you what it looks like. So everything that you need for your W-2 or for your taxes is on your W-2. It tells you where to look. See, box B, employer ID. The number will be there. Okay. Everything that you have to do to find on for your taxes is going to be on your W-2. Okay. Um, it takes a little bit of time, but it'll take less time because you're just entering in probably 1 to 2 W-2s. If you work 2 different places in 2020, then you do have to enter in both of those W-2s. You should already have them. Businesses are required to get their W-2s to their employees by January 31st. So if your employer, former or present, does not have your W-2 to you and you worked for them in 2020 and made more than $500, then you should be getting a W-2. Okay. If you didn't, there's some rules there, but if you did make more than $500, they owe you a W-2. Okay. So get with them. All right. That's all the questions that you guys asked me so far. It's a lot of information. It's a really long video, and I'm sorry. But all the stuff that I answered here is all information that you guys asked me for. If we're back together on Thursday or Friday, if you have more questions, I will happily answer those for you. And hopefully, if we're in person on Thursday and Friday, then Miss Slater will be able to come in and also answer some questions about school, about scholarships, all that stuff. But in the meantime, I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to post that informational document for you. I'm going to post her email, the Google Classroom code for her, Miss Lemaster's email, and then I'm just going to put my email on there just for good reference. Okay. Um, so if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. You can also resubmit on this Google form, where you should be able to, and you can ask me another question. If you don't, if you can't do that, then just put it on the comments on Google Classroom, and I will be happy to try to answer. Or you can email me. Okay. So don't be a stranger. Go do your FAFSA, and I will talk to you guys later this week.